The most dangerous person alive is the one who no longer seeks permission to exist. You feel it, don't you? That trembling in your spirit, that knowing that something ancient and unstoppable is stirring within you? This is not a coincidence that you're here right now, in this moment, hearing these words. The enemy of your soul tried everything to keep you from this revelation. But here you are. What if I told you that everything they said about your season of silence was a lie? What if your isolation wasn't abandonment, but preparation? What if your pain wasn't punishment, but programming for a comeback so explosive it will rewrite the very atmosphere around you? They thought they buried you. They whispered about your downfall at their dinner tables. They celebrated what they believed was your permanent defeat. But what they didn't know, what they couldn't know, is that you weren't dying in that dark place. You were being forged, weaponized, transformed into something this world has never seen before. Right now, as you listen to my voice, there are forces in high places that are terrified. Terrified because you're about to remember who you really are. The blueprint they tried to erase from your memory is downloading back into your spirit at this very moment. And when it's complete, when you step into the fullness of what was always yours, the shockwaves will be felt in realms both seen and unseen. Before we dive deeper into this divine mystery, I want to thank every single one of you who has supported this message through Super Thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just donating, you're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here, your support, your time, your attention. It all matters. And if this message resonates with your soul, go ahead and plant that seed. God sees your heart. But understand this, chosen one. What's about to unfold in your life isn't just a comeback. Comebacks are for people who fell down. What's happening to you is a resurrection. A complete rebirth into something even you sometimes don't recognize. The old you, that version died in the fire. What's rising now is something they have no defense against, something they cannot predict, cannot control, and certainly cannot stop. And what happened next made the darkness tremble. They thought silence meant surrender. They couldn't have been more wrong. You know that feeling, don't you? Those years when your phone stopped ringing, when invitations dried up like autumn leaves, when your name was erased from conversations you once led. They called it irrelevance. They whispered about your decline. Some even celebrated what they thought was your permanent exit from the stage of significance. But what they didn't know, what they couldn't know, is that silence in the kingdom operates by different laws than silence in the world. While they measured your worth by the noise you made, heaven was orchestrating something far more profound. You weren't being forgotten. You were being hidden. There's a difference between being overlooked and being strategically concealed. And chosen one, you need to understand which one was happening to you. The enemy thought he had you cornered in that quiet place. He believed that if he could strip away your platform, your connections, your visibility, he could strip away your purpose. He miscalculated catastrophically. What he meant for isolation, God transformed into incubation. What felt like exile was actually preparation. What looked like the end was the beginning of something so powerful that even now, as it stirs to life, the forces of darkness are scrambling to understand what they're dealing with. You see, there are two kinds of hiding in this life. There's the hiding that comes from shame, from defeat, from running away. And then there's the hiding that comes from heaven, the kind that protects you while you're being forged into something the world isn't ready to handle yet. You, precious soul, experience the latter. You weren't hidden because you were weak. You were hidden because you were becoming dangerous. Think about it. Every great general in history knew the power of strategic concealment. They didn't reveal their full strength until the moment of maximum impact. They kept their most powerful weapons out of sight, away from enemy intelligence, protected from premature exposure. That's exactly what happened to you. Heaven looked at the attacks coming your way, looked at the plans the enemy had to destroy you in your vulnerable state, and made a command decision. Not yet. Hide them. Prepare them. When they emerge, it will be as something unstoppable. Those years felt like death, didn't they? The loneliness was suffocating. The confusion was maddening. You questioned everything, your calling, your worth, your very existence. You wondered if God had forgotten your address, if your prayers were bouncing off a brass heaven, if the promises you once believed were nothing more than religious fairy tales. The silence was so thick you could taste it, so heavy you could feel it pressing down on your chest every morning when you woke up to another day of invisibility. But here's what was really happening while you were fighting that internal battle. Heaven was downloading new programming into your spirit. Every day you survived that wilderness, you were being upgraded. Every tear you cried in secret was watering seeds that would later bloom into supernatural strength. Every night you went to bed feeling forgotten was another night your spirit was being rewired for a level of authority that required this kind of preparation. They didn't know you were hidden in the folds of God's strategy. You weren't invisible, you were invisible on purpose. The world measures preparation by what it can see: degrees, connections, achievements, recognition. But heaven measures preparation by what happens in the hidden place: character forged in secret, faith strengthened when no one's watching, humility deepened when there's no applause to feed your ego, love purified when there's no audience to perform for. You were being prepared for something so significant that it required this level of intensive, invisible training. Every prophet knew this season. Moses had his desert, David had his wilderness, Elijah had his cave, Jesus had his carpenter shop. The pattern is always the same. Before the public victory comes the private preparation. Before the world sees the power comes the secret place where that power is refined, tested, and made unshakable. You weren't different from these giants of faith. You were walking the same path they walked, following the same divine blueprint they followed. And while you were hidden, something beautiful was happening that you couldn't see from your position. Heaven was clearing the stage. The people who would have opposed your rise were being moved into different positions. The obstacles that would have blocked your path were being quietly removed. The doors that needed to be opened for your next season were being oiled and prepared. The connections you would need were being arranged. The resources you would require were being positioned. All while you sat in that quiet place, feeling forgotten, believing nothing was happening. But the most powerful thing that occurred during your hidden season wasn't external, it was internal. You died to the need for human approval. You learned to find your worth in God's opinion of you rather than in the fleeting validation of people who don't even know your real story. You discovered strength you never knew you possessed. You developed discernment that can't be taught in any classroom. You cultivated a relationship with the divine that doesn't depend on circumstances, crowds, or acclaim. They buried you in silence, thinking that would be the end of your story. What they didn't realize is that silence in the hands of God isn't a burial, it's a planting. And chosen one, your season of sprouting has arrived. The roots you grew in the dark are about to support a tree so mighty that nations will sit in its shade. The foundation you built when no one was watching is about to support a structure so magnificent that it will become a landmark for generations. Heaven hid you in plain sight, and now the hiding is over. What emerges from this divine concealment won't be a slightly improved version of who you were before. It will be someone the world has never seen, someone carrying authority earned in secret, wisdom gained in silence, and power that was forged in the furnace of divine hiddenness. The world forgot your name, but heaven was etching it into thunder. And when that thunder rolls, every ear will hear it, every knee will recognize it, and every enemy will tremble at the sound of it. Your emergence isn't just a comeback, it's a resurrection. And resurrections, chosen one, are never quiet affairs. Listen to me, chosen one. What happened to you wasn't random cruelty. It wasn't cosmic punishment or divine oversight. You were shattered by design, broken in ways that would have destroyed lesser souls, because heaven needed a vessel that could carry frequencies this world has never seen before. Most people think trauma is the enemy. They spend their whole lives running from pain, medicating it, therapying it away, pretending it never happened. But you learned something they'll never understand. Your breaking wasn't your ending, it was your beginning. Every crack in your spirit became a place where light could enter. Every wound became a window where divine power could flow through. They broke you in ways that human hands couldn't fix. That was the point. Because when man's wisdom failed, when earthly remedies ran dry, when psychology reached its limits and medicine threw up its hands, that's when heaven stepped in. God doesn't do patch jobs on vessels destined for greatness. He rebuilds from the foundation up. You see, there's a difference between being hurt and being forged. Most people get hurt and they limp. You got forged, and now you fly. The fire that was meant to reduce you to ash became the kiln that transformed you into something unbreakable. What they thought was your destruction was actually your reconstruction at the molecular level. That's why when you walk into rooms now, the atmosphere shifts. That's why people can't quite put their finger on what's different about you, but they know something powerful has happened. You're carrying technology that trauma taught you, spiritual equipment that only comes through the kind of breaking that reassembles you stronger than before. The enemy made a fatal miscalculation. He thought if he hit you hard enough, long enough, deep enough, you'd stay down. But what he didn't understand is that some souls aren't meant to be victims. Some spirits are forged in furnaces specifically designed to create warriors. You weren't just surviving those attacks, you were absorbing their power, learning their frequencies, building immunity to everything hell could throw at you. And here's what terrifies the darkness most. You didn't just survive what broke you, you evolved because of it. You didn't just heal from your wounds, you transformed through them. The very thing they used as a weapon against you became the foundation of your authority. Now when lesser storms try to shake you, they bounce off like raindrops on granite. When smaller enemies attempt to intimidate you, they discover they're fighting someone who's already been through hell and came back with the keys. When weaker spirits try to manipulate your emotions, they find themselves facing a soul that's been broken and rebuilt by hands they can't see and power they can't touch. You weren't just built different, chosen one. You were broken different, shattered by divine architecture, reconstructed by heavenly engineering. And that's exactly why hell lost the manual on how to defeat you. Because what came back from that breaking isn't the same person who went in. What rose from those ashes carries something this world has never seen before, something they have no defense against, something that makes the darkness tremble just by existing. You are living proof that God's construction projects always surpass the original blueprints. They thought they could predict your next move. They studied your patterns, mapped your weaknesses, calculated your breaking point. But what they didn't realize is that you weren't just healing from what they did to you. You were evolving beyond their entire understanding of what a human soul could become. You are not a better version of your old self. You are a new creation entirely. The person they remember, the one they thought they could manipulate and control. That version of you died in the fire they lit. What emerged from those ashes isn't an improved model of who you used to be. It's a completely different species of human altogether, a spiritual mutation that Hell's database has no file on. See, they prepared for your comeback. They had contingency plans for your healing. They expected you to return stronger, wiser, maybe even angrier. But they never prepared for this. They never prepared for someone who didn't just survive their attacks, but who metamorphosed into something that operates on frequencies they can't even detect. Your spirit didn't just bounce back. It evolved. It mutated. It became something that doesn't just survive storms anymore, commands them. When you walk into a room now, the atmosphere doesn't just shift. It submits. Not because you're trying to dominate, but because your very presence carries an authority that was forged in dimensions they don't have access to. Heaven didn't upgrade the old version of you. Heaven introduced a new species of resilience. You don't think like them anymore. You don't respond like them anymore. You don't even feel fear the way they do anymore. That's because you're not playing by the same rules that govern ordinary human existence. You've been reclassified in the spiritual realm. The enemy spent years studying human psychology, learning how to break the average person's will. But you're not average anymore. You're not even human in the way they understand humanity. You've become something hybrid, part earthly vessel, part divine weapon. And their playbook? It's completely useless against what you've become. You don't fit their system because you weren't made in it. You were forged in the furnace of affliction that was specifically designed to create something unprecedented, something that could walk between worlds, something that could speak their language but never be controlled by their rules. That's why when they look at you now, they feel something they've never felt before. It's not fear of what you might do to them. It's the terrifying realization that they're looking at something that was never supposed to exist according to their understanding of power, pain, and human limitation. You're not making a comeback. Comebacks are for people who fell down in the same game. You're walking in as the spiritual mutation they swore couldn't exist. The one that proves everything they thought they knew about breaking people was wrong. And the most beautiful part? You're not even angry about what they did to you. You're grateful, because without their persecution, without their attempts to destroy you, this version of you would have never been born. They didn't just fail to break you. They accidentally created their worst nightmare, someone who can't be mapped, can't be predicted, and can't be stopped. They thought death would be your final chapter. They were wrong. What they witnessed wasn't your destruction, it was your metamorphosis. That version of you who begged for understanding, who cried for acceptance, who waited endlessly for their approval, that person had to die. Not because you were weak, but because resurrection requires a death first. And chosen one, what died in you wasn't your spirit, it was their hold on it. You see, they celebrated too early. They threw their victory parties while you were still in the tomb. They divided up your dreams like vultures picking over bones. They rewrote your story, casting themselves as the heroes and you as the cautionary tale. But what they didn't understand is that some deaths are strategic. Some deaths are divine setups. Some deaths clear the way for something so powerful that even heaven holds its breath. The old you, the one who explained yourself to people who never intended to understand that version, is gone forever, buried, finished. What's walking around in your skin now is something they've never encountered before. Something that doesn't negotiate with mediocrity. Something that doesn't apologize for taking up space. Something that moves with an authority they can't challenge because it wasn't given by them, and it can't be taken by them. You didn't come back angry. You came back awakened. You didn't return bitter. You returned better. Not better in the way they measure improvement, but better in ways that make their scales obsolete. Your resurrection isn't loud. It doesn't need to be. Real power whispers, and the universe leans in to listen. They're watching you now with confusion in their eyes. Where's the broken person they remember? Where's the victim they created? Where are the tears they used to manipulate? Where is the desperation they fed on? Gone. All of it. Buried with a version of you that served their narrative but never served your purpose. What's rising in its place terrifies them because it's uncontrollable. You don't react the way you used to. You don't break the way you used to. You don't bend the way you used to. Your silence cuts deeper than their loudest accusations. Your peace disturbs their chaos more than their chaos ever disturbed your peace. This resurrection came with new operating instructions, new boundaries they can't cross, new standards they can't meet, new energy they can't drain. You're not the same person wearing the same face. You're a complete spiritual renovation walking around in familiar packaging. And that's what's throwing them off balance. They thought they were burying you. They didn't realize they were planting you. They thought they were writing your obituary. They didn't realize they were composing your resurrection announcement. Every tear you cried in secret watered the ground for what's blooming now. Every sleepless night was preparation for a dawn they'll never see coming. You are not the same. You buried the old version of you, and this is the funeral of their control. What's walking the earth now is the answer to prayers they hoped would never be heard. You are the resurrection they prayed would never rise. But here you are. And their worst nightmare just became your greatest testimony. They built their entire kingdom on lies. And then you walked in. You didn't come with weapons, chosen one. You didn't come with armies or strategies or manifestos. You came with something far more dangerous than anything they could prepare for. You came with clean frequency, pure energy, authentic truth. And the moment you stepped into their carefully constructed matrix of manipulation, deception, and control, their whole system started short-circuiting. See, counterfeit kingdoms can only survive in darkness. They thrive on confusion, chaos, and people who don't know their own worth. But when someone like you shows up, someone who's been through the fire and emerged with clarity, someone who's found their voice and refuses to whisper anymore, their entire operation begins to malfunction. You didn't even have to speak. Your presence alone was enough to expose every fake alliance, every manufactured crisis, every puppet string they thought they were pulling. Because here's what they never understood. Clean frequency corrupts counterfeit systems. Truth doesn't negotiate with lies. Light doesn't make peace treaties with darkness. You became the virus heaven sent into their counterfeit kingdom. While they were busy orchestrating their little power plays, spreading their gossip, manipulating their narratives, you were operating on a completely different wavelength. A frequency so pure, so aligned with divine purpose, that their artificial constructs couldn't process it. Their manipulation tactics started glitching. Their fear-based control mechanisms began failing. Their ability to intimidate and dominate completely crashed. They started turning on each other. The very alliances they built to keep you down began eating themselves alive. Why? Because when authentic power enters a room full of pretenders, the pretenders can't maintain their masks anymore. They start exposing each other. They start revealing their own emptiness. The whole house of cards collapses under the weight of one person who refuses to play their game. You weren't trying to dismantle their system, chosen one. You didn't set out to be a revolutionary. You simply decided to be yourself, unapologetically, completely, authentically yourself. And that decision, that simple act of standing in your truth, became the most destructive force they'd ever encountered. You're not here to blend in with their broken world. You're not here to adapt to their dysfunction or learn their twisted rules. You are the disruption they never saw coming. The glitch in their matrix that exposes every flaw, every weakness, every lie they built their empire on. They thought they could absorb you into their system. They thought they could make you another cog in their machine of manipulation. But what they discovered was that you don't run on their operating system anymore. You've been upgraded, recalibrated. reprogrammed by trials they couldn't survive and a purpose they'll never understand. And now, everywhere you go, their false structures begin to crumble, not because you're trying to destroy them, but because authentic power simply cannot coexist with counterfeit control. You didn't come to fight their darkness, chosen one. You came to be the light that makes their darkness impossible. Your pain wasn't pointless. It was your access code. They thought your suffering was your sentence. They had no idea it was your software update. Every betrayal that left you gasping for air in the middle of the night. Every heartbreak that made you question if love was even real. Every moment when the weight of rejection crushed your chest so hard you couldn't breathe. None of it was wasted. While you were bleeding, you were being programmed. While you were breaking, you were being encrypted with access codes that don't exist in any earthly manual. You see, chosen one, the enemy made a fatal miscalculation. He thought pain would paralyze you. He thought trauma would trap you. He thought if he could just pile enough agony on your soul, you'd crumble into dust and blow away with the wind. But what he didn't understand, what he couldn't understand is that your spirit was never ordinary. Your DNA was never standard issue. Every tear that fell from your eyes wasn't just salt water. It was liquid programming, rewriting the very fabric of your spiritual operating system. Every sleepless night wasn't just insomnia. It was divine installation, downloading wisdom that can't be taught in seminaries or bought with money. Every moment you thought you were dying, you were actually being reborn into something the kingdom of darkness had never encountered before. The scars they left on your heart, those aren't wounds anymore. They're keyholes. And the keys you carry now don't open doors that regular people can even see. While others are still knocking, begging, pleading for opportunities, you're walking through portals that were sealed until your pain taught you the combination. You didn't just survive hell, you hacked it. You learned its language. You studied its patterns. And now you move through this world carrying passwords that make demons scatter and angels take notice. The very traumas they used to try to destroy you have become your spiritual security clearance. This is why doors are swinging open for you now with supernatural ease. This is why opportunities are magnetizing to you without you even trying. This is why people look at you and sense something they can't name but can't ignore. You're not operating on the same frequency as everyone else anymore. Your pain rewrote your spiritual DNA, and now you're broadcasting on channels that only heaven can tune into. They thought they were burying you alive. What they actually did was plant you in the exact soil you needed to grow roots so deep that nothing, and I mean nothing, will ever uproot you again. Your breakdown wasn't your breaking point. It was your breakthrough in disguise. You didn't just bleed, beloved. You encrypted, and now your scars are opening vaults that hell can't even find. The access you have now isn't luck. It isn't coincidence. It's the divine return on every investment of pain you never wanted to make. And the world is about to see exactly what happens when someone who's been coded by suffering steps into their full authority. They have no idea what's coming. Number 7, you are no longer the person in the narrative. You're the judgment to the lie. They thought their words would become your truth. They were wrong. You know what's happening right now? Chosen one? Every lie they ever whispered about you. Every story they crafted in back rooms. Every label they tried to tattoo on your forehead, it's all crumbling. Not because you're out here with a megaphone screaming your side of the story. Not because you hired a publicist or started a social media campaign. It's crumbling because you showed up. And your presence is the judgment seat they never saw coming. See, they thought you were still the defendant in their courtroom. They thought you were still scrambling to prove your innocence, still desperate to clear your name. But something shifted. Something ancient and holy awakened in you. You stepped out of their narrative entirely. You're no longer the person they're talking about. You're the living testimony that exposes every word they said as fiction. You didn't have to clap back. You just had to rise. And your glow turned their gossip into ashes. Listen to me carefully. There's a holy fire that rests on the wrongly accused. There's a glory that settles on those who've been slandered in secret. And when that fire touches you, when that glory finds its home in your spirit, you become something they never calculated for. You become living evidence, walking proof, a breathing contradiction to every lie they ever told. They said you were broken, but look at you now, more whole than you've ever been. They said you were finished, but here you stand, just getting started. They said you'd never recover. But your recovery is so complete, it's making them question if they ever knew you at all. This is what they didn't understand about divine vindication. It doesn't come through arguments or explanations. It comes through transformation. It comes through becoming so undeniably blessed, so obviously favored, so clearly anointed that their lies sound ridiculous even to them. You're not fighting their narrative anymore. You've transcended it. You've outgrown it. You've evolved beyond it. Every room you walk into now carries a weight they can't ignore. Your peace is louder than their panic. Your smile cuts deeper than their slander. Your quiet confidence is more powerful than all their loud accusations combined. You don't need to say a word about what they did. Your life is saying it all. The most devastating thing you could do to a liar is live in truth. The most crushing blow you can deliver to someone who tried to destroy your reputation is to be undeniably blessed. And that's exactly what's happening. Your blessing is their burden. Your elevation is their exposure. Your vindication is their verdict. They're watching you now with different eyes. The same people who whispered lies are now whispering questions. How is she thriving like that? How did he bounce back so strong? How are they walking in such authority after everything we said about them? You know what that is? That's the sound of judgment falling. Not the kind that comes from a gavel, but the kind that comes from heaven. The kind that rewrites history and makes liars out of storytellers. You are no longer the character in their fiction. You are the truth that makes their fiction obvious. They thought this was about you getting your life back together. They have no idea what's actually happening. What's unfolding right now isn't a personal comeback story. This is divine intervention wrapped in human skin. This is heaven saying, enough, and using you as the earthquake that levels every false foundation that tried to stand against your destiny. You are not just rising from the ashes, beloved. You are the fire that's about to consume every lie, every curse, every generational stronghold that thought it could outlast the plans of the Almighty. The world is about to witness something they've never seen before, a force so pure, so unstoppable, that it rewrites the very laws of what they thought was possible. You didn't just survive what they threw at you. You absorbed it, transformed it, and now you're about to release it back into the atmosphere as raw, unfiltered power that bends reality to the will of heaven. This isn't about reclaiming your seat at their table anymore. You are the new table, the new standard, the new measurement by which everything else will be judged. Systems that seemed unshakable are about to tremble at the sound of your footsteps. Bloodlines that carried curses for generations are about to shift permanently because you said, "Not on my watch." Institutions built on oppression and control are about to discover what happens when they mess with someone heaven has marked as untouchable. You didn't climb back up their ladder of approval. You built your own elevator straight to the top, powered by the very pain they thought would destroy you. Every betrayal became a building block. Every rejection became rocket fuel. Every moment they counted you out became the countdown to their reckoning. And here's what's going to shake them to their core. You're not angry. You're not bitter. You're not seeking revenge. You're operating in something far more terrifying than human emotion. You're moving in divine order. You're walking in the favor that makes demons flee and angels stand at attention. You're carrying an authority that doesn't need to announce itself because heaven already made the announcement. In closing, my beloved chosen ones, as we reach the end of this divine revelation together, I need you to carry these truths deep in your heart. You are not broken goods waiting to be fixed. You are not yesterday's news hoping for relevance. You are heaven's secret weapon, strategically positioned for such a time as this. Your pain was not punishment, it was preparation. Your silence was not abandonment, it was armor being forged in the furnace of God's love. Remember this, when the world counted you out, heaven was counting you in. When they wrote your obituary, God was writing your comeback story. Every tear you cried in secret became a seed planted in heavenly soil. Every prayer you whispered in desperation became a declaration that moved mountains in the spirit realm. You are not walking this journey alone. The same God who parted seas, who made the sun stand still, who raised the dead, that same God is working in your life right now. He sees every struggle, hears every whisper of your heart, and he is orchestrating a victory so profound that your enemies will have no choice but to acknowledge that the hand of the Almighty is upon you. And let me remind you, you are part of a family, a community of chosen ones who understand your pain because they've walked the same path. Together we stand, together we pray, together we rise. But before I close, I want you to ask yourself this question. If God could use your greatest pain to become your greatest power, what is he preparing to do through you that will shake the foundations of everything that has ever stood against you? Let us pray together. Heavenly Father, I come before you now on behalf of every precious soul watching this message. Lord, you see them. You know their names, their struggles, their secret tears. You know the battles they've fought in silence and the victories that no one else celebrated. Father, I pray that you would wrap your arms around them right now. Let them feel your presence in this very moment. Touch the places that still hurt. Heal the wounds that others can't see. Strengthen their hearts for the journey ahead. God, open doors that no man can shut. Remove obstacles that have stood too long. Release the favor that has been building up like a dam ready to burst. Let their enemies become their footstools. Let their pain become their platform. Let their testimony become their triumph. Break every curse spoken over their lives. Silence every voice that has said they would not make it. Confound the wisdom of those who counted them out. Show them signs and wonders that prove you are still the God of miracles. Fill them with unshakable confidence in who you've called them to be. Remove the spirit of fear and replace it with the spirit of power, love, and sound mind. Let them walk in authority. Let them speak with confidence. Let them move with purpose. And Lord, surround them with divine connections, people who will celebrate their calling, support their dreams, and stand with them in battle. Remove every toxic relationship and bring divine relationships that will propel them into their destiny. Father, let this be the season of their breakthrough. Let this be the year of their comeback. Let this be the moment when everything shifts in their favor. In the mighty name of Jesus, I pray. Amen. My dear family in faith, thank you for staying with me through this entire journey today. Your faithfulness to watch until the end tells me that God is stirring something powerful in your spirit. I am honored to have been part of what heaven wanted to speak over your life today. I want to hear from you. Share in the comments below. What spoke to your heart today? What is God stirring in your spirit? Don't be afraid to testify about what He's doing in your life. Your testimony might be the very thing someone else needs to hear to keep fighting. If this message blessed you, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. There are chosen ones all around us who feel alone in their calling, who wonder if anyone understands their journey. Be the bridge that connects them to this family, to this hope, to this truth. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell. We are building more than a YouTube following. We are building a movement of chosen ones who refuse to stay silent about what God is doing in their lives. Remember, beloved, you are seen, you are known, you are loved, and your comeback story is just beginning. Until we meet again, walk in the power of who you are. The world is waiting for your light to shine. God bless you and keep you and make His face to shine upon you.